First, I want to get into something that is not exactly related, but it's an email that I received. And it was quite a shocking email. And it came from a Muslim parent. Obviously, I won't share, I'll keep it anonymous. But this letter, I want you to listen to it and really try to imagine the situation of this parent. He wrote an email to me about his daughter. So he says, I have a question about the status of purity tests and the importance of them in the face of modernist secularist approach to sexuality. In my opinion, I find that feminism has propagated zina into the ummah and selling out a type of blasphemous religion that tells girls/women that for their success or liberation in the world, they have to sell their bodies for gratification, sexual or otherwise. I find that feminism places no importance on the sacredness of Muslim women and actively promotes the ummah into zina. I am worried that my daughter has committed zina, and I don't know how to navigate this difficult situation. I've considered consulting with my local imam. However, I don't want to embarrass her or my family. What is your opinion on how to navigate this? I have considered removing my daughter from the public school she attends, the location where I strongly think zina occurred, and place her into our local Islamic school. She has been skipping class and hanging out in the bathrooms, and from what I've heard from her friends, it includes potential contact with boys. I gave her the option of visiting the pediatrician to do a comprehensive examination to see if zina occurred. Our doctor is nationality and is sympathetic to our situation. My only concern is if the examination counts as zina itself. Thank you for understanding. So, I mean, this is a nightmare scenario for any parent, whether you're father or mother, that your daughter is in school, going to public school, and it seems that she is actually active with the opposite gender. So how do you respond to this? So I responded, and this is my response. Let me read it to you. I assume your daughter is attending public high school. Unfortunately, average girls in such environments often engage in zina, especially if they're average or above average in terms of looks. Muslim girls are not immune, especially if they don't wear hijab, but even if they do. So basically, if you're sending your child to public school, especially if it's a daughter, then there's going to be interaction with boys because there's constant mixing. The classes aren't segregated. You have class with the opposite sex, and even gym class. Even gym class, you can, see the opposite sex and mix with them, do sports with them, and that's a physical thing. So if you are concerned about your child touching and being touched by the opposite sex, then the public school is the last place you want to send your kids. Anyway, so does your daughter know that mixing with the opposite sex is wrong? Does she know about the importance of modesty? Does she have religious Muslim friends or mainly non-Muslim friends? How influenced is she by modern culture via social media apps? Does she consider herself a believing Muslim? Have you asked her? Does she pray? Etc. So why is this important? What is the communication like between parent and child? And what is the religiosity of the child? Does the child even care about hijab or modesty or not mixing with the opposite sex? If she doesn't even know that these are important values and she doesn't value those things herself, then what point is there for a purity test? What point is there for, why would you subject her to that when she doesn't even know the basics of Islam? She doesn't know that this is wrong and this is right. That has not been communicated to her. So let me continue. It's not easy raising a child in a non-Muslim society. You have to take many preventive and proactive measures. Otherwise, they'll quickly fall into the dominant cultural practice, which includes zina for girls. But there are worse things than zina, such as disbelief. So this is a kind of naivete that unfortunately we see from many Muslim parents, especially those in the West, but even in the East, that they don't understand that there's this constant assault on the Muslim mind. There's this constant assault, overwhelming from every direction to assimilate, to accept the dominant paradigm, the dominant worldview, to accept the dominant values, to behave like a modern person behaves. And that is very contradictory to Islam. You can't be both a Muslim and a kind of modern, average person living in the world with modern progressive values. those things are in direct conflict. So if you're not proactively as a parent teaching your child, supporting your child, communicating with your child, empowering your child to be a strong believer, then they have no chance of resisting this onslaught. Like, imagine, there's this huge tidal wave coming towards your child, and you haven't even done the due diligence. Like, forget about like moving the child away from the tidal wave, but even maybe putting like a raincoat on the child, like the most minimal thing so that they don't get as wet, Imagine that. No, you've actually, thrust them even closer to this tidal wave. You've actually put them in public school, which is, think about it. They're spending 40 hours a week with people who don't care about Islam. They don't care about Islamic values. What do you think is going to happen? This is naivete. And some of these parents they came from other countries, and they think that public school for their children is like how public school was 30, 40, 50 years ago in Pakistan or in Bangladesh or in Egypt or Iran. Like, no, it's a completely different world. It's a completely different world in the West if you put your children in public school, and then you're surprised, like, oh, my daughter is skipping class and she's going and hanging out in the bathroom with boys, and I'm worried that she might have engaged in this kind of behavior. Well, no, duh. Obviously, like, it would be a surprise if she hadn't. It'd be a miracle if she hadn't. So this is just I feel sorry. I feel sorry for these parents because they're not being given the correct information. That's really part of it. They're not being given proper information, and you have a lot of these sellout scholars, or even normal scholars, frankly, because I go to, the local masjid here, and the imam, mashallah, he's a great, very knowledgeable, one of the most knowledgeable scholars in the Western Hemisphere, in America for sure. He is, has all all this knowledge, all this good character. He rarely will speak about like the dangers of public school. And I think to myself, why? Like, everyone who is in this jama'ah, in this community, they have children and they're putting them in public school, and the children are being exposed to all of these dangers. And like I said in my response, zina is like, it's a huge thing. It's a huge danger. But compared to kufr, like disbelief, that's the top concern that you should have as a parent. Is my child going to end up being Muslim when he or she grows up? That should be your top concern. But, the imam is not talking about this. The imam is not giving a fatwa saying that, well, public school is haram. Why can't we have that kind of fatwa? That's something that really should be considered. Like, is there no one who is brave enough to give that kind of ruling? Or to give that kind of statement about public school, like the reality of public school? Because you're going to get blowback. You're going to get a lot of blowback from these parents who they don't want to do the due diligence and take care of their own children, or they are just unaware, or some of them are just lazy, or some of them might think that there's no alternative. They haven't really try to find alternatives to public school. They're going to get angry. They're going to say, okay, great. Now I have to, instead of putting my child in this institution, which is so, easy, they make it so convenient. A bus will literally come and pick up your child in the morning, take them away for free, and then you're going to go to work, and then the bus will bring them back home. And they're going to get educated. Wow, this is a great deal, right? What could be better? Not only do I not have to take care of my child, there's the state is taking care of him or her. They're also getting educated and learning all about the amazing things, science and math, and to become an engineer or a doctor. This is great. So yeah, so you're going to have to be uncomfortable. You're going to have to do some work. You're going to have to find solutions. But what is at stake? The iman of your children. So do you care about that? If you need to do the due diligence so that the disaster doesn't strike. The disaster of, oh, guess what? My teenage child or my 20-year-old child no longer believes in Islam. The disaster. Or, in this case, my child has engaged in zina. My child is pregnant, for example. She's only 16 and she's pregnant and she's not married. Well, what did you do to prevent that? Like, what values did you convey? What kind of environment did you provide? Or did you just dump them in the public school? I mean, it's a sad situation, and I can't just blame the parents. I have to blame the imams as well. especially in the US, because in the US you do have the opportunity to homeschool and put them in other institutions, maybe Islamic school. Now you have to really see if the Islamic school is that much better than the public school. Unfortunately, a lot of Islamic schools are pretty much the same thing as just a non-Muslim Islamic school. So the quality will vary greatly. But, you know, this is a huge challenge. So then I continue in my response. A purity test at this point will not solve anything. It might make the situation worse. Just transferring her to an Islamic school also will accomplish little if she has no sense of Muslim identity, no regard for Islamic norms of modesty and chastity, etc. Islamic schools cannot magically impart those values. Actually, some Islamic schools are not much better than public schools. You should consider this a wake-up call to begin to do what's necessary to preserve your children's iman. It's easier to do this if you start early. Since your daughter is older, it can be more difficult, but ask Allah for guidance. What every Muslim needs is taqwa. Taqwa is what protects us from sinning, and when we do sin, it drives us to seek forgiveness. How much taqwa can you detect from your children? If none, then you have to nurture that first. You can also see if the local imam has suggestions. May Allah make it easy and rectify the affairs of all believers. So this is, the nightmare scenario. And it just shocked me to see that, to see parents that are going through this. And you can't wait till disaster strikes. That's my message.